Rinpoche, Tashi Delay. And good morning, Katrina. Thank you for your translations. Welcome to people watching online. We'll begin with our prayers as usual, and the link for those prayers is in the chat box.
To the teacher and Tao, transcendent destroyer, one that's gone, full destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower the world, supreme guide of beings to be king. Teacher of gods and humans to you, the Buddha and Tao, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies, form supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme sun's face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame, a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land, venerable holy gurus. In the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ramana Kam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Ta dik song gen la.
Voilà. Oh yeah, that's it. Tiang Geshe Yeshe le song le, right? Oh, Sibe Tunge Chata Sham de Shins. Simjen Mete Sever de Badans. Tema Chata Chever de Vecha, Chanju Simye Tatu Tang Mechas. Oh, she song batara. Sibe Tunge Chata Sham de Shins. Siba Koave Tunge Maluba Shore de Ve. Kibu Dringi. kapchi lamde sungwara. Kibun ringe kapsu, siba kowa nyawa ida tando mi lala soba. Leda nyomo mewangi shangwa tu chene kichi che kuba tele. Ene tunge tamche pa shivar deva sora. Sibe tunge kyata shamdeshi. Tada kibu ringe lamdi rinbe kapsu, siba koya tunge tada shivar dene teche do. Ene meda tunga tongtang meso kom temba shi namshati yogwara. Ti sungwara. Sibe tunge kyata shamdeshi. Simje mede sewan de bata. Kibu chembyo kapsu. Simje tamje ye tunge tamje shive chedo. Sanje je koban toban de loti kiwara. Simje mede sewan de bata mas. Simje tamje ki mede wate mende ba. Rawa tunge la soba. Te sangma tamje shivar de be. Simje tamje tunge da trewa chedo. Ta sanje je koban tobu to samsage. Samlati. Kibu chembyo kapsu samlati kuwara. Kibu chembyo tunda döten tirwa. Simje mede sewan de bata. Teman kyata chobar döbe kyans. Ta kibu chungwe kapsu ina da rwa kibu dingda chembu kari kapsu ina. Nega ranga kowa kowe kaptil ya. Ne tarwa da tamja keba. Tuwe chedo ngondo lada mi. Koban sangbu chi, kyawa sangbu chi, tuwe ten sangbu chi toku yora. O di song yora. Ngondo lada mi kyawa langde. Ne tewa mangbu. Rwa kyawa mangbu. Choban döbe kyans. Teman kyata choban döbe kyans. Tanda lada mi kyawa sangbu chi toku tiye tendo. Ngondo lada mi koba tuwe da. Tarwa da tamje kembe koba tuwe chi to ten kebar shanti toku yora. Tiso tanda kibu sumki lamji rinpa chasang dötun sangma de. Chanchu ku simde rangyu le kesu na ne trup tu re sung yora. Teman kyata choban döbe kyans chanchu simye tatu tangme chas. Chanchu ku sim rangyu kyu le kebar se u re se. Ke simba te ne matangwa tembo che che sung u re se. O ti sung dwa. O ya te chilo na.
So, as the great master Shantideva has stated in his guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, those who wish to crush the many sorrows of existence, who wish to quell the pain of living beings, who wish to have experience of a myriad joys, should never turn away from bodhicitta. So here, this verse, as it states in the first line, those who wish to crush the many sorrows of existence, this is really getting at the kind of attitude of a being of middling scope, recognizing all of the various sufferings within samsara. A being of this level sees that whoever one takes rebirth as, whether it is a human or a god, whether one is an animal, a hungry ghost, or a hell being, all of these are still in the nature of suffering. They come to, as we see in the kind of stages of the path for the being of middling scope, see all of the cycle of samsara as suffering. And in order to get out of that, to crush the many sorrows of existence, they meditate on suffering and impermanence, selflessness, and so forth, in order to be able to extricate themselves. And then in the next line where it says, who wish to quell the pain of living beings, this is really talking about the being of great scope, the being who wishes to be able to alleviate the sufferings of all other sentient beings, their desired aim being Buddhahood, in order to be able to be of benefit to sentient beings, in order to get rid of the various kinds of sufferings and unwanted experiences that sentient beings have. So that second line really encompasses the kind of attitude of a being of great scope who is wishing to free other sentient beings, and in order to do so, attain the state of Buddhahood. And then where it says, who wish to have experience of a myriad joys. This really encompasses the kind of attitude of the small scope in order to gain good states of existence within samsara, a rebirth as a human or a god, and good conditions within that. It is, as this last line says, should never turn away from bodhicitta. Generating this attitude of bodhicitta is the basis for achieving all of the desired aims for all three scopes. So we can see that someone who wishes to crush the many sorrows of existence, or to quell the pain of living beings, or to even have this experience of a myriad joys, to be able to gain a good rebirth in samsara, a special kind of a basis upon which you are able to continue to practice. Really, all of these kinds of desired aims come about as a result of our generating this attitude of bodhicitta. So here, we should make an effort, if we have not yet generated that, to generate it, to stabilize it, to increase and enhance that attitude.
Oh yeah. Oh, the tatunda kasura. Oh, the tanga jo namjune nambe chu ti shede zakot. Kibu chungun ding chimbu sungbage. Samla de chadar bichi korto bachiyogodwa. Tijungun du choshe chide tipe kibu chungun ding chimbu sungde tsuya. Transurista gyora. Oh, the kasura. Oh, tanda 심제 탐지에 때도 산제지 고반 토버 샤냠도 심제 탐지에 때도 산제지 고반 토버 샤님도네 디 기부 중고다 정다 전부 참마가 남주도 되는데 참마데 두개를 남라 주고 요라 진보 수팀 서발라 소바테서 주고 요래 어전에 다음에 봐도 동반이다 전주부 삼라 소바테서 공발라 주고 요르티데 기부 순가게네 되는데 참마 탐지 냠술랑 고요라 기부 첨부가서 당부 기부 중원 냠술랑 되는 등 냠술랑 되네 전부 줄거라 마도고 ngamangamango도 손에니 치마 기부 중을 남매교와 조바 교와 조루 야 샴페인게 삼로다 샬레서와 방발서 같은 야게 드는 야야 공네 공도 편이 안 로고요 마도고 샤마데 샤샤 되게래요 말와 어디인데 다던다 너 심지어 탐지에 때도 산제지 고반 토버샤섬 심지어 탐지 동에다 태워샤 통경게 그것에 연대 군대지 가사시된 요가샤섬 대체도 안에 대바시비 단다 공부로도 있어베라 테니 숑다 대솔리테네 대솔레테바다 사바 콤베름 진주바샤 냠도 콜로세탄데 세버쇼스
So, therefore, normally when we talk about like the Buddhist teachings, we need to really understand all three of these levels of practice, one could say, the small scope, the middling, and the great scope. And so at the point of really thinking about our motivation, we should reflect sort of in stages on these various kinds of motivations, recognizing that really as we progress, we need to engage in the practices of all of these, right? We need to engage in things like the 6 perfections, generosity and ethical conduct. We need to meditate on selflessness in order to be able to extricate ourselves from samsara. And we need to generate bodhicitta, that sort of attitude of wanting to become a Buddha for all sentient beings, as well as having the kind of grounding in ethical conduct, abandoning the 10 non-virtues and any harm to other sentient beings. And it's not as though we pass through these in a way where it's like, oh, I'm done with that practice and I go on to the next one, but rather it is the foundation that we increase and enhance over time. So something like the ethics of abandoning harming other sentient beings, we don't sort of surpass that practice, we enhance it and develop it further and further. So when we think about these 3 scopes, it's really not something where we pass through stages, but where we build upon it. And we should recognize the importance of holding all of those kinds of practices. So with that, as for setting our motivation, we should think that in order to become a being who has eliminated all faults and developed all good qualities, has complete knowledge of what it is that we should adopt and abandon, and is thereby able to fully benefit other sentient beings, I'm going to listen to these teachings on of the precious Garland of Nagarjuna and put them into practice in order that I myself might become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So please set such a motivation for listening to the teachings.
Oh yeah. Tanga zu dele so. Ngele ki chunde sheba se tele so ngele ki chunde sheba se tele atan de kam dil tan da ngele ki chunde sheba se de. Chitang ngele se de tan tarba da tamje kimba ni ga yong yo ba. Ngeba le ba se menjuru e chu ji ta te wa se ko 대원들이 건 유언도야지 시리더라. 장 네바 레베 쟁엘레스도 타르와 탐지 쳔바니까 시거도. 다단데 네레 윤데 셰바사데 대바 침비 진데 시거도아. 가르스는 민주 장세 양답에 따와라 소바테스다. 말에 단디그리 지래. 네레기 준데 셰바사데 장주그 셈 라나메베 장주그 셈데 수께지기 규데 수티운데자 아니고 네 교수부터다 네 상계기 천상부 성주장님 줍지기 규다 배제다 대서 걸리시기도 소된 엘리트 상계기 고반 탐지기 규 걸리시기도 디나네다 당부도 가르치기도 쓰나 야 당부 그말래서 이래 준대 시작하라 라메 전주 토베 교소도 숨도 되는 시기도 데려다 당부다 라나메베 전주 상계지 고바 토베 교소도 숨나를 수 되는 시기와라 सबसे 당부 데려 다 당부 근데 가르스나 쇼로카 된주 된시들어 당이 당는 직된 디스 라메 전주 톱되나 대사와 전주 셈 롱아게부 따르텐당 초대 도배 뉴지다 일라메데 이실라스 다데 이거리 정도 아니오다 된주 시다 내가 이거리 정도 어디 가르선도스 당이 당네스 전에 개부 전부 당이 당네스 당을 쓰와 직된 데스 아니 직된 베심제 셴남게 있어요 라나메베 상계지 고반데 톱되고 요나스고라 라메 자주 톱되나 대 줄라 매고레스 대 줄데 가레스 대 싸워 장주 셈데 지그래 장주 셈 대 싸워 장주 셈 정하게 부탁된다 장주 셈데 템보 요아 매밤 냠구 매밤 정게 페리 정하게 부탁고 템보 제세 네버치 손두고 그래서 대절에 초대 독배 니지다서 초다 타 남게 태 캡에 심제 탐제 동해대 전도지 닝지 전부 깨고래서 초대 독배 니지다서 너 초매보다 탐매배 심제 요라 남게 거쳐비 심제 어때서야 배 닝지 깨고래서 동해대 전도 대조 상마 동해대 전도 초래 매봐 심제 네다디 동해대 최고는 네다디 단단하라 졸래 동해대 마테네디 콜네바 연구 삼사 삼류라 계속 강가 매버 차네 남게 태도고 심제 야 심제 임버 삼제 진짜더니 동해 전기 심제 임버 삼제 대탐제 개원 매버 동해대 전지 인지 초대 도배 인지다서 인지 전부터 쓴 거라 니라 메데 이실라스데 니라 메데서 타니라 메데바 체달을 체베탈을 놓네 동반이레스를 좀되다 가야 매바 텐데 매버셔 동반이레스도 내 좀되다 고하다 가가 매버셔나 내 체베탈을 놓고라 타텔을 벌어져 그래서 단단 아주 삼륜날이야 랑원에 두바 랑와도 두바도 나다 소소다 셴스도 랑와도 십시 삼을고요라 제전에 딱달을 놓더라 랑와에 따요바 다에 딱달 놓더라때 타닐라 메타웨이 시스데 동반이 또베 된다 땡진 제벌 중앙에 동바 랑원에 동바에 땡진 제벌 중앙에 자지 태바 어디 고요라 타니스 멜로아세데 라와도 트베 동바 라와도 트베 동바 이나야 땡진 제벌 중앙에 좀더 고대 자지 태바세 어디니데 용거라 기억되니 타닐라 메템베시 요거라 동바이 니라 메테시라스 대솜데 산제지 고반 톱되고요나 대 교조 대솜들이 안에 되다도 내 원래 그래스 티시도 야 어디시라나
So then here, picking up where we had left off in the text, we're going to be picking up from the second half of verse 74, which begins this topic of explaining the sort of three principal causes. Well, actually, this is an explanation of the cause and effect of definite goodness. So when we talk about definite goodness, that is referring to something unchanging, right? So this is the state of liberation and omniscience. We talk about sort of higher status and definite goodness. And here, primarily because this is a Mahayana text, when we speak about definite goodness, we're talking about Buddhahood. And the three principal causes of Buddhahood are then going to be explained first, and then it will get into how one trains in the causes for accomplishing the various marks and signs of a Buddha. So beginning with then the sort of exhortation to train in the main causes of definite goodness, that is Buddhahood, they are summarized into these three main causes. So here, as begins in the second half of verse and I should say 174, if you and the world wish to attain unexcelled awakening, its roots are bodhicitta that is as firm as the king of mountains, compassion that is as vast as space, and wisdom that relies not on duality. So here, if you, referring to the king, and the world, as in those sentient beings who are abiding within samsara, abiding within this world, if you wish to attain unsurpassed awakening, if you want to have the kind of highest happiness, then the roots of that, as in the causes of that, are first bodhicitta. So bodhicitta that is stable, that is non-degrading or degenerating in any way. So this then is referred to as bodhicitta as firm as the king of mountains or Mount Meru. And the cause that leads to having that kind of bodhicitta or wishing to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings is really great compassion, as comes in the next line where it says compassion that is as vast as space. So sentient beings are as vast as space, are sort of incalculable. We can't really reach a limit to that. And so too, one's compassion should extend to all sentient beings in an impartial kind of a way. Currently, we tend to have compassion for some that are close to us, and others, if they're, say, getting hurt, we're kind of like, nah, that's okay. It's not a kind of impartial compassion that spreads to or extends to all sentient beings. So one needs to have this kind of compassion that is as vast as space, or great compassion. And in addition to that, as it reads in the last line, and wisdom that relies not on duality, or wisdom that doesn't fall into either of the extremes. So not falling into a kind of extreme of nihilism, wherein one thinks that, well, if there's no independent autonomous existence, then there's no karma, there's no cause and effect. And so having that kind of extreme of annihilation that denies the existence of cause and effect is one extreme, and not falling into holding on to the way that phenomena ourselves and others appear to us to have this kind of independent autonomous existence. If we hold on to that, it becomes a kind of extreme of permanence. So within that emptiness, within there being a lack of any kind of independent autonomous existence, one should still accept the proper functioning of karma, cause and effect. So while being empty of such sort of reified, independent, autonomous existence, there being the possibility, the sort of logical functioning of karma, cause and effect, then is what is indicated by this wisdom that relies not on duality or doesn't fall into any extremes.
Oh yeah. Oh, tadi, oh, tadi, chile. Oh yeah, tiendu tatanda delia. Oh, kasure. Kunzu chanju ki sem de sungudwa. Chidang hajo tandam chanju ki sem da kunzu chanju ki sem shera. Tandam chanju ki sem se de tongbani ngusum tu tokbe lam del sigara. Oh, kunzu chanju ki sem se de semje tamje ko to sanje ji ko ba thawar cha nya be. Chanju ki sem de la kunzu chanju ki sem sigara. De la kunzu chanju ki sem se go karesna. Kunzu ji ko sugu thawala. Ko se yende kunde ya timi malu wa pangbe kansa chilin jura cha asam kansa chilin jursona ne shenla 무엇을 최송해라 소버tin데 거라 제가 조 톱자데 심제 탐제도 산제지 고반 토버샤세 chanju sem바 톱제 조데 수굴라 메기와라 추구다 수군이 그다네 추구되고 방도 예연데 탈심 버시고라 방도 예연데 탈심에 가사질은 그러 자섬겨라 방도 예연데 탈심에 가사질은 그러서는 뒤자 셴달이야 무슨 넘버 10에 최셔야다 현재 때도 가가 두에 여러 가사데 방도지 연대니부터 고 랑이 탈심에 랑게 된다 랑던지 구세도 왔더라 랑이 있게 구세 연대 군대 주에 차들 방도지 연대니리 거라 셴라 팬토에 셴데 무슨 저거 되들 수구대 거라 어때인데 또 수구를 메고라 자 군주 잔주기 셈세데 군주 뵙고 수구를 좀메니 여기와라 됐으잖아 단담 잔주 단담 뭐 동반 영어 숨도 또 배차네 될 잔주 셈스명다도 어디서 걔도 다 군주 잔주기 셈데 cầm đi cầm xuân trẻ bao nào mà sẽ mà nó sống của ngô số thế kệ thương mình đó thì anh ấy chẳng chịu xem để kiến sĩ cứu sĩ kiến sĩ tốt sĩ là thế này kêu là sẽ chỉ đó thì ta đi pa đi nào xe bút yêu mà thế trẻ bao cầm xuân của đó cứu sĩ sẽ công chúa chẳng chịu xem để kiến sĩ là thế này kêu là kiến sĩ đã cứu sĩ tốt sĩ kiến sĩ để cả cái đó sẽ nó rồi kiến sĩ để cái đấy anh cái gì chẳng xem cái thu xem cái mấy cái bao thôi chanju semba chanju semke sonane chanju semba to nitude pe kewa sonam da shi soyega sabala tu ne samji me chaba yonde samji me chaba yeba tone ti kenje semke ke war chire chansemge nido chansemge tu samji me chaba tone kenje ke war chiche ya chi de ga so chansemge tene ma do to chanju sembe tene to lo samlo ta so samlo ta ne ane chanju semke yongora tezu tso checha chamsengi tene mando tebe kengi kiwache ten tejingi demba mao be tulia semje tamje ke tene se shende tube de pe kapo de sam nyingme tende le mi kanga soso tonda mato she samye se de tende ko tende samlo semje tamje de shida keje shena tagase yongju menge keje shege samsa tende ke kyangre mato yo mara o ta nyingme tende dabulia semje tamje ke tende chanju semke bade pe kombore sam tas chaba chimbe tamba manu je ke chido ngarang ke go sa uzu cheche ki go ro ti ken ki bade sora tije ge tamba nyamba maso ba jwa nyamba maso be ke ji to ba che mene kar ane nyime de semke ba kombar to ke ki ke ba che o de so o tele ke shele tene ke was chi she to o di jilam no
Can Shiba di karre gen konda.
정말 내 말씀아. 티진이 땜바 냠바 마셔봐도 지래서. 저는 티진이 땜바 냠바 마셔도 내게와 지지. 에네 지데 니라 가서. 님의 되는데 샘게바 건배 통해 기봐.
No.
님의 되는데 샘게바도 건보를 삼체. 다른 배 우주 겹쳐 지위사 당연히 얘네 두 상부 걸을 때게 다 등산 미가가 지속거라다네 챵베 상무세를 또 용야 매버리레삼 다 다른 게는 선을 납치 버사그레삼 tin데 ken기 버싱고도 그래서
Yeah, decent.
어야 되죠.
So here, then just to expand on this a little bit, when we talk about bodhicitta, and here particularly in the commentary by Gyaltsab Je, it refers to this attitude of bodhicitta as being conventional bodhicitta. So here, when we talk about bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta is that kind of attitude, that thought of, for the sake of all sentient beings, I myself wish to become a perfectly enlightened Buddha. And really, the kind of, and then as opposed to that, ultimate bodhicitta is referring to that wisdom directly realizing emptiness held by such an intention. And so when we think about conventional bodhicitta, really this has as its objective, we could say, the form body of a Buddha, right? If one wants to become a Buddha in order to benefit other sentient beings, it is not on the basis of one's own abandonments and realizations that one can do that. The Dharmakaya is really useless, not useless, but incapable of directly benefiting other sentient beings. And so to be able to do so, one needs to become a person, a being who is able to teach and interact with other sentient beings. So when it comes to this kind of conventional bodhicitta, the primary objective that one is striving for is not solely one's own perfect abandonments and realizations, but really the kind of person, that body, that form body that one will take on in order to be able to benefit other sentient beings. So that's really called the body of others' aims, whereas one's own perfect abandonments and perfect realizations are the body of one's own aims. And that, of course, is interconnected with being able to take on a form that can work for others. So conventional bodhicitta primarily sort of observes or is striving for that rupakaya, that form body. And here in the commentary as well, it refers to this attitude of conventional bodhicitta wishing to become or wishing to obtain unsurpassed enlightenment that is like Mount Meru, is sort of stable like the king of mountains, that is accomplished through 4 conditions, 4 causes, and 4 powers. So here, this isn't in the root text, but in the commentary, and looking then first at these 4 conditions. The first of these conditions is really observing this kind of inconceivable motivation of other sentient beings, like looking at the kind of attitude that they have and thinking that really that sort of mind is something almost beyond conception. We're inspired by that. Seeing those other beings who have that, this is a condition for us ourselves, giving rise to an attitude of bodhicitta. And then second is by much hearing about this. By hearing about this kind of attitude repeatedly, we ourselves are able to generate that. And then I had to ask for clarification because these last 2 points, the third is the condition that of being unable to bear the kind of decline of the Mahayana. And this is then related with the 4th condition, that is in this degenerate era, recognizing how extremely rare it is to have such an attitude of wishing to benefit others. So we can see like that the Mahayana is in decline, and being unable to bear that, we want to generate such an attitude of bodhicitta for ourselves. And so too, looking around at us, we can see in society and in general, just having an attitude that cares for others, that is concerned with others, is something quite rare. And recognizing that as well, this is a sort of condition for our generating bodhicitta.
Oh yeah, that 가서래. 그러니까 교시대로와 교시에서 견시대로서 교시세더라. 대 티진도 리세베 교시도 택바 준비 리세 지당 가족이야 박사님들 상매시게 사변시대 요하라. 대야야 걔네지 택바 준비 삼루야 고에 르디야 세체네. 야 네버 쳐줘야 줘라. 티진도 리세베 교시거라. 니닝지 준비 심베 교시. 되는 닝지 준비랑 유력게네. 계산에 안에 대 전주 심게 규를 개발장도 가라. 닝지 준비 심베 교시. 현재 가져를 수배 교시. 현재 전주 선바 현다게 심비도 더 가와제를 서바 변나 산제 좀 되다 보면 줄로 발람게 내고서 전주 선바 교와 통의 마부여라 굴레껴봐. 현재 가져를 저절야서 디나신가에 제부를 삼자. 현재 가져를 수배 교시제라. 현재 가져를 수배 교시. 시장소에 티진도 리세베 교시. 교회 생기지 심배교 교회 생기지 최대는 마마부시에는 소소연연들 때는 끼어서 니지 전부랑 유력견이 깨져라 니지 전부 심배교체 생기까지를 심배교체 어디 교시 있어야 되지도 야
So then next are the four causes. So we just went through the four conditions for generating bodhicitta. And then in terms of the four causes, the first of these is awakening this kind of Buddha nature, right? So we all have this potential, this seed within us, but when it meets with certain kind of conditions, that is sort of awakened or fostered, nurtured into our training along the bodhisattva path. So the first sort of cause is the awakening of that lineage or that Buddha nature. And then second, I'm going to put this in the order that I think it goes in, is hearing about bodhicitta and these trainings from a virtuous spiritual friend. When we have the cause of that kind of virtuous spiritual friend, we are inspired. I mean, this is something that from hearing from them, these teachings, this is how we then develop that within ourselves. And the third cause is then being held with great compassion. When our mind is sort of infused with that attitude of great compassion, that becomes a cause for generating bodhicitta. And then there is, and I'm not sure if I'll get the exact words that it is, but sort of seeing the austerities or the difficulties that others have engaged in. For example, the Buddha in the path of training, the difficulties, the sort of trainings that he underwent in order to become a perfectly enlightened Buddha. We become sort of inspired by those. Seeing the practices of others then becomes a cause for us ourselves generating bodhicitta. So those are the four causes.
야, 다들 또 실력이 왔어요, 또. 또 실력이 왔어요. 어디 가서 와서는 랑게 또 없어요, 당부들이야. 랑게 또 없어요. 소소 랑얘기. 셴 동에 와서 왔는데 통망부 통삼을 통텐데 게 많이 뭐또 소소 그저 갈래 겹져 꼼 겹져 뒤쳐야 될 수도. 랑게 또 없네, 겨와시라. 셴기 또 없어요. 셴 동에 와서 왔는데 망부 통외 깨지네. 애네 겨와들 셴기 또 없어요. 아니 가래 랑게 또 없지. 아니 셴기 또 없지. 그와 네 꼼배 또 없지, 지시라. 꼼배 또 없어 겨왕아 맞는데야. 아니 지금 소수 마모 꼼제네 센들에 남사 깨셔줘 쳐야 돼. 진짜 깨지. 자주 좀 깨버렸어라. 네 꼼배 또 없지. 꼼배 또 없지. 아니 조례 또 없으라. 조례 또 없으래 택받침배 기회 생기 텐데 최대한의 벨 다와르시 샤샤샤샤 텐데션 우주체네네 대견기 또체 끼와텔 생기 또 있게 와시기도 와. 어디 또 실례네. 근데 네 소원스 또 없이
랑이 톱, 셴기 톱, 곰베 톱,
조례도
조르베 톱.
조례도 없이 교회 생기 최대한 벌 때네. 마모셔네 니때 연벌 때네 끼야시기도 와. 근데 교시 깨시 또 없이 공부할 때네. 전주초도 샘대 깨네 샘 땜부 깨고 그래서거라. 야, 다 대서 많이 번남 유간 주체네. 근데 명아 되지 권에 샘 깨와 딱생념 유권에 샘 깨발 소보 용거라. 다이난데 깨 양데데 깨게 깨게 그 섬을다네 깨 용거라 깨지 소라 쳐셔. 대신에 전주고 샘대 마냥 뭐 영화 개부 따르때 뭐 거래세. 교시 깨시 또 실을 때네 깨와다. 군주 가서 근데 명아 되지 권에 깨와. 파바 토메네 지저 잠발라 교배 로게 준데 맹아 던지고네 셈게 봐서도 지저 잠배야네 아니 공부로도라 소바 텐데 마 교배 로게 공부로도다 아니 계세 신부 쇼알라 소라 교배 로텔야 당신 냠제고네 셈게 주시기도 다 등산전에 고 가담 발라마스네 디니가 송도데 고네 아니 셈게 요라 어디시나 야
So then the next is the four powers. So here, these are listed then as sort of one's own power through one's own mental fortitude, having this kind of observation of the sufferings of others and really taking that initiative upon oneself. That is generating bodhicitta through one's own power. I should just say that these have some kind of overlap. There is also then through the power of others. This is really based upon seeing the sufferings of others and really wanting to be able to alleviate that for them, and also seeing the example of other bodhisattvas doing this kind of practice. So due to the power of others observing that, then generating this for oneself. Then there is the power of habituation, due to having laid down imprints in previous lives, having some kind of habits or a customization to this attitude, one is more easily able to generate such an attitude again in the future. So that is the power of habituation, one could say. And then there is the power, I'm going to translate this, the power of application. That might not be exactly right, but it's really when one has the kind of interactions with a virtuous spiritual friend, it is in dependence upon hearing these teachings from them that you then apply yourself to that, right? So the power of that kind of interaction with a virtuous spiritual friend that acts as something for motivating you, or as a condition, and I should be careful with the language, but as a power for then generating this attitude of bodhicitta, is the kind of power of application. So as it says here, in dependence upon those four conditions, four causes and four powers, one should develop this kind of bodhicitta that is stable, like the king of mountains. And here, when we normally talk about generating bodhicitta, we talk about the instructions like the sixfold cause and effect method, or equalizing and exchanging self and others. These four conditions, causes, and powers are really in addition to that. They are the sort of external like conditions or causes that help, but in terms of actually generating such an attitude of bodhicitta, we do so on the basis of the instructions like the sixfold cause and effect method that was taught by Maitreya and passed down to Asangas and so forth. And then, or alternatively, based upon the equalizing and exchanging of self and others that comes from Manjushri to Nagarjuna down to Shantideva and continuing on down. And then we see with the Kadampa Lamas, they really kind of combined these two methods in order to develop a way of generating bodhicitta.
Oh yeah, that in there kone. Ene chanju ke semde ri ombo. Ri na shi tembo juro meba, nyamgu meba. Oh tinde keba che gore se songudwa che shera. Ene te na ne kyu so de kare ngore sene nyingji chembu de ngore. Chogde to be nyingji da se de ra. Kyu so de semje dungwe da trende je tsawa de kaje shuk chewa yona ya. Te samje dungwe da trewa che nge che chegudu sam tsende pame chembe tsende nyende ge chembe. Oh tinde samurta ane pa gya ne semje tamje padam mada se tinde samurta gyora. Oh tiche ane ya ta da she ran dewan dole tunge mendo ba shindo she dewan dole tunge mendo ba nyambare so so chebu ge tawa tuwe ta kange se te chang samurta te ran cheban chimba de shukche ta res ti kyo kanga de yongu ore se ta she to she chimba ne yonde sammo de te yongu tu sam ta kyo thoma me ne samurta ya norsha sam ne takshe che samur se de yongu do o tinde samurta ne 닝지 전부대 빼 개치슈치 규조대 티레서를 시도 초대 두배 닝지 다스라 닝이라 메데 시라세 타니라 메템바 동번이 검소나 네 잠바다 닝지다 뜻을 깨들에 팽게 와라 숙처도 와라 심제 상마대 나오 냠도 나라와 진지 네 나에서 네 딱초 딱신 초 제네 코아코 미케벨레 마부사 대되고라 동반이 또 손에 땡에 남주네 가 시부지 고요 삼사 땡데 가 고라메데 라오베 가 땡데 메데 자네 가데 심제 강가데 가 라오하시 메네 라오하시 진네네 코아코네 차단 게와게레 만다사체 코아코데기 삼사 땡데시네 코니지 쳔부케 도도데레라요라 가주 오마주 왕고데구라 가르시래 got to do that. More, I do it today. So they to be ninja dance, or take a bush that is on the and then you'll make she last at it. Don't want you to be ishite, Sanjay Kobato, the swords. Take what talk on the Yomo with Zawa, sing this Chatan kiss of Shikora, 자와들 내주도 네 작당 매번 줘다 신을 잡고 저와 깨줄 애라로 요라 럽치로 요라 어다 그 조선부터 러버차고 그래 송구도 야 대질람나 흔들 기래
So here, as it says, as Nagarjuna is advising the king, one needs to develop this kind of bodhicitta that is as firm as the king of mountains. And the major cause, so this kind of attitude of bodhicitta should be something that isn't going to degenerate in any way. It's stable, it's firm. And the primary cause of such bodhicitta is this attitude of great compassion. For example, in the sixfold cause and effect method, we begin by thinking about the beings in this life who have shown us great kindness. We naturally sort of feel affection for, whose suffering we want to alleviate, and so forth. And then, based upon contemplating the countless rebirths that we have taken, we extend that farther and farther. We recognize that every single being has acted in such a capacity towards us, has shown us such great kindness. And it really is on the basis of developing a kind of compassion that encompasses all of those beings that we then generate this attitude of bodhicitta. And so too, in the method of equalizing and exchanging self and others, we begin by contemplating the fact that every other single being is the exact same as we are in wanting to have happiness and not wanting to suffer. And really, when we come to that kind of understanding, coupled with a recognition that our self-cherishing attitude is really the source of all of our problems, all of the faults that we have encountered up until now have been caused by our self-cherishing attitude. And an attitude that cherishes others is really the source of all things that are good. And so it is in this way that through these methods, through developing great compassion, and great compassion then as a foundation for developing bodhicitta, this is how we go about developing such a stable kind of bodhicitta. And so too, this non-dual wisdom, or wisdom that relies not on duality, this is, again, a cause of Buddhahood, but also one of the causes that enhances our bodhicitta. When we think about the kind of way in which we grasp at an I, and then we have the sense of I and other, and due to that, we then engage in all kinds of activities, accumulating negative karmas that are going to create our suffering and so forth. It is a recognition of emptiness as being the method for severing that root of samsara. It gets at the root. It's what will get us out of this cycle of suffering. And so, like we see at the beginning of Chandrakirti's entry to the middle way, where he describes the kind of process that we and other sentient beings are undergoing by first grasping to an I and so forth. This kind of wisdom, realizing emptiness or understanding emptiness, also enhances or develops our bodhicitta. It is something that the understanding of which contributes to that attitude of bodhicitta.
오야 단데 저거데 저 제반날르다 단데 계접식은 제반날 송구도 에네디 가소나 저 데카바시르서 오마 주베캅송이 저 잠바다 니주다 자주심께 주다 동반일에 소바티코데 오마 주베캅스 케버 송기 오데세 데즈타고데세 지로 아니 티네마 제제 케버 쳔도나 셰루무친 라브리 쳔메캅소 저바찔라 라바세로 아니 제 기부 쳔베 람라 라바서 어테서 야보따나 테즈나 베세부 요레 송도가 디질람나 한데 그래 야
So here from the commentary, it talks about how one can look at texts like, for example, Chandrakirti's entry to the middle way in terms of the ways in which one generates bodhicitta. As well, one can look at for example, the stages of the path literature, and these act as ways for someone to be able to develop and generate these kinds of attitudes. As far as the methods of practice, those are the sorts of texts that one should pay attention to.
Oh yeah, talking this matter. Oh yeah. 당연히 저 장선 양답에 따와도 당보가라서 로창 안에 처럼 예값을 든지 수기도 어쩌네 양내 양도 꼼내네 사당부터도 동반인 것음도 또 발라서 봐 tende che konde konde pe ora tende kombe riba pancha ma lo chang ko yo na de che rum bu ching jebe lamri chemo kese ge choba chile la ba se ro ene parji tamanye la ba se chine dal ha don tezu ko le lap chule so ba tezu ya bu tana tezu na le se bu che kurim shin do kum ju ka ga yo de so do wa te chila
So here, then one begins by generating this sort of attitude of bodhicitta, great compassion, and an understanding of emptiness that is conceptual, or that goes through a sort of a generic image, is mediated by that. It isn't a kind of direct realization. And this is what we experience then on the path of accumulation. And by slowly improving, developing those kinds of attitudes, particularly that wisdom realizing emptiness, when we get to then the path of seeing, we have a direct realization of emptiness and continue to develop this further and further. So as far as the kind of stages of practice, talking about how one goes about developing this attitude, developing the various practices that go along with that, as well as a particular kind of explication of the training in the final two perfections, one should know this from the various stages of the path literature and so forth.
this one.
Yes.
Tene ka do se sheba. Tanga jo sabje ni ba de le to tanda te ka so da. Ni le ke kunde le la ba se te shera lana mebe. Sanje ko ba to je kyu so sum du tune te la kure sum di she sarimba. Ta tene sanje je chen sum ju sanje tu be kyu la ba se. Sanje ke tene chen sambu sum ju sanje da pe je sambu kya ju se tene yora ku yonde. Yonde zebala soba tezu kanga ya tichi wara. Sanje je ne chen sum ju sanje soba adezu kyuti kyundile lamne jebu di jungu de se ti shegora ti shegdo niba terda. Niba aya. Wachile so ngato. Dindo sarishe. Tadira niba la ni set. Niba nyambar ko ta kebu ya bu sen sho sanje ke yonde ku yonde sen sambu sum ju sanje le soba tezo kyunde de le tane tu ku arese te nyambar ko ta she ngo te ba ta nyambar ko te da sholoka tunju de ba kebu chimbo ke chen ke se do kebu chimbo se kebu chimbo sanje chum den de ke ku yonde chen sambu sumju sanye ki seura kebo chimbo keshen ki chen sumju sanye ki se chen sambu sumju sanye kun je bar che ba zu do dan je bo da dan ma pa che yong gu da gu yuan de de zu jun den den de le dan gu yuan den de zu yong gu de xie gu ra sumju sanye ki chi dar kyu ku jen gyur ba se chen sambu sumju sanye ki sanje namje ne ku kembar kurwa se teda bo ne sembar ote kande se ne kembar te sembar jo se nyambar ku to nye yabu je sen sho ase nyambar ku atre ya ote sulana.
So then we turn next to the second of these two topics. So after saying that one should train in the three primary causes leading to Buddhahood, we then turn to training in the causes that accomplish the various signs, the 32 signs of a Buddha's body. So these are really the kind of, they're the 32 signs and the 80 marks that beautify or indicate the kind of qualities of a Buddha. And so here, this is then divided into two different topics, the first of which is an exhortation to listen, telling the king, please listen well, and then the actual explanation of these. So again, these are marks or signs on the body, such as the crown protrusion and so forth, that are sort of these beautiful adornments, attributes of a body, and here of a Buddha's body. And here we are going to get into training in the individual causes that lead to each of those. So beginning then in verse 176 here, which is the exhortation to listen, he says, "King, listen now to the way that your body will be adorned with the 32 distinct signs that indicate a great being."
Yeah, this one.
Yes.
Sembar Geshe Thabkhe songs. Oh yeah. Nibanese Kudungi Yingbuchen. Oh, but remember. Kudungi Yingbuchen da Sanje Yichinji Labata Kabu Chunam Sagbata Tipe Lena Pambe Sanje Chumdente Tinila Chudenshi Artist. Da Sanje Chumdente de la Kui Yonde, Roba Sungu Yonde, Tugi Yonde Mambuyora. Oh, Tanda de Saint Sambus la Sobatis Chue de Carisana. Nibani Kudungi Yingbu Chenda Sanje Chumdente de Kui Si Yube Yingbu Chen. Chöden la soba da tendelia siwa tazu ka sunam sakbe shires sanje ji chinji la bata kabe chönam ton kabe chönam ya kone konde pe da tikbe chönam ma pa ya da o tende chedo ane sanje chumde de kuta sunda tu la soba tezul teba chena ane sunam ma busagre tikba ma butagre ese sanje chumde de tenela chöbe ten she ya number chodo sanje ki kusuda chöden da sunla soba tezulia sanje chumden de yela chöbeten ese kusun kube kone sunum sasa chöba pisage sunum sasa tenre ese o te yona shi ane sanje chumden de tezuta sanje ki tunju tundun de da sholwa tunju tundun de chöden chöja sanje chumden de chöbeten ese chöber chawa Pagbatan, and Kerab Namla, or Dandima, Cheba Pune, and Sunam, Le Sambu, Chebe Le Sambu Tinde Sane, Nitsente that the Chores, Damashiriora. Oh, Tunjutundun de Tawara, Sholuka, Chudense, Chucha, Pagbatan, Kebarto Pagbata, Chebe Chebar Chaware, Chebe, you Chebar to Pabaris. Kerab Namne Le Kurvese, oh, and me Kemba, oh, Tazulia, Kushep Cheval Soba Tindeltene, Tatunda, Sanje Chebete, or Kusuntogi La Soba Tezole Chevachiata, Chucha, ne Chebar to Pabata, Chusa Kebar to Pabatezolese. Ne me Kerab Nale, Mazuneta Kembalia. So se pamala soba kengolia kushepsier chora kiram namne le kurwese kyo mambolia kawa ane ngonji sanje namje chujbe tento solia chebata ane kiram la soba te solia ningur shepto shue tende mambo kesa mambo samje mechaba sabal tene ane pande chashab kolo ye sembe kolo jura juruse chada shabde no pende chashab kolo ye ne sembe kolo juar jos chada shabla kolo ramo yongara chashab kolo chendas tande ngondo jen ne tawa ye ne tina le la yora chashab kolo chenda ribe shaw sera panje ma yora chada shab suru dave dewa danse ngondo je kap je ga bige do na ane te changma tawa korana sebshi yora 다tonda tambu de shegdo chada sheb kolu chema ta chema ke kyambas o tires ti karchen yongorasna kyo mambol ngonje sangye ge kusun to de la soba te zolo chebada kereb la chebala soba o tende mambo chene masa baletene ne chada sheb de kolu chede yongores wara ya tichilamna lidwa
So here then, beginning in verse 77 or 177 here, this gets into the explanation of the individual kinds of signs and the causes that lead to them, and then the sort of what is the relationship between them. And so here, as a kind of precursor to this verse, it says then in the commentary that by doing these kinds of actions, now here normally in Tibetan we refer to something as like a churten, which is the sort of basis of making offerings, and this really is referring to the actions of making respectful offerings, respectfully with one's body, speech, and mind toward those who are worthy of honor, whether it is the sort of the Buddha's body itself, those who have its blessings and whatever it might be that is a basis that is worthy of honor because of their qualities. If one makes offerings respectfully with body, speech, and mind, as well as by offering to those who are, say, elderly or worthy of respect in some ways. So here I'll read the verse that goes with this. Due to honoring chaityas, that's the Sanskrit word. For the Tibetan, we have the churten, which is really the basis of making an offering. So something that is a representation of the qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. And if we are making respectful offerings to that, or to those who are worthy, to Aryas and also elders, your glorious hands and feet will be wheel marked, showing that you shall turn the wheel. So here, if you have faith in the qualities of those kinds of beings, or if one honors a stupa, for example, that is a representation of the Buddha's mind, gives offerings and reverence and honor to those who are worthy, also to those who are older, like one's parents and so forth, the kind of result that comes from that is having your glorious hands and feet will be wheel marked, and that actually showing that you will turn the wheel. And so here we have then in this next section a kind of description of the various signs of on a Buddha's body and what the causes are that lead to them. If we want to see this more clearly, this also occurs in the 8th chapter of the Ornament for Clear Realizations, where it's all sort of laid out very directly.
다던다 차샵 콜로 참바 세트레도 차다 샵로 콜로레모 세부치도 안되거든. 단디안 디날 디만 데바코라마 로샤네 디도 산제 그 로아 산제다 산제응어다 아니테 최대다 샤야 최자 파마다 소세 파마다 캠보다 로아 로베다 아니 네발라 소바 테졸이야 네바다 fakbe kendula soba kerab solia ne ninguru shabdo tanga paso lega chido kangban do lagba ta kangban lega che rogba che kuyora tinde mambo che sabal tene ne chada shabdo kolo sembala soba sanche de tinde yogore sere do kerab namla kurwa ta shenye sigi nembe sigi peda shenye sigi meneba shenye pachu sigi meneba chi tamjele pa kyawado tinde kolo chambala soba tinde yunde kusun zebo rawa o tinde yoyete sio siji ye pedan demba chashab yiti ane sipto mochi sobe kolo ye taji sembe kolo chorji tinde do ta chashab kolo chamba ase tambut ya tinde so o de robs lamnela ya
No. So then in the commentary to this, it says that if one respectfully sort of honors well actual Buddhas or those like representations of Buddhas, as well as those that are worthy of honor, one's parents, one's sort of preceptors and teachers, those who are sick and so forth. Additionally, the kind of Arya Sangha, those who are elderly, then one will have these kinds of sort of magnificent wheels on the hands and feet. So when we think about, when we go about serving others, we use our sort of hands and feet. And if we have done this over a long period of time, the kind of result that comes in the form of a Buddha's body is for the hands and feet to be wheel marked. So that's what this then gets at in 177.
Oh yeah. Tanga Shologa, Tunju Tunjetira, Tunju Tunjetira. Oh, Kebu, Chula, Takbarni, Yanda Lamba temperatures, Tatango Shesa di Kebu, Sonda Kebulia, Kebu Sene, Ranga Chu, Tebata Sambachete, Langsadi, the Tembo Cheja, I get drag, Tashicha, Setira. Kebu Chula, Takbarni, Yanda Lamba temperatures, Menyambachi Temboche Kone Kondusongures. Tene Shindo Shabnebe, Chanju Semba Kurva Lase. O te mambu, keba mambu tende sabola tene, tene se debu judiciaire o tangma. Te tene Shindo Shabnebe, Chanju Semba Kurva Lase. Shabde Tido the Nandurene Congo de Chiora, the Wode Congo de Chitua, Tende Kadukura, Super Chipa, Sera, Shab Chanyamba, Ya Wo Congo of Tende Maviche. Chanyaba, or Tende Jores. Kevu Church, Tagbar. Kelambana shi anda walambu de manyam shi tempa zose. Ane tinde kyawa mambu sabwala tene kari yungure sene kangdil nyambar shabwi titi nyamba. Anzoni wode tongbar kongore chiwara tinde mepe nyamba. Shabwi titi shate pa nyamba. Tine kangdil nyambar babe shindu shab nebe chanju sembar churwa lagwe tida labar chawas. O tiri ta kichi labshana, this one.
Yeah.
Shamyam dancer to da. Gosh, Cheshire College had the Rivesha. Taish, oh yeah.
Yes.
This one,
Decent.
oh yeah, this is Sholoka Tingutere.
Tungerwa.
Oh, Tingacher.
So then next in verse 178, it says, King, always be steadfast in your commitments concerning the Dharma. In that way, you shall become a bodhisattva who has level and even feet. So here he's exhorting the king that always, whatever kinds of commitments you have made regarding the Dharma, hold those firmly. Don't allow those to degenerate in any way. And if one is to, over a long period of time, hold such firm commitments, the result of that is to have level and even feet. So when we look at our feet, we can see that we have an arch that kind of comes up. There is this hollow part of our feet. But due to the kind of steadfast nature of a Buddha, particularly in his commitments related to the Dharma and not allowing those to degenerate in any way, the result that comes from that is having these kinds of feet where there isn't that hollow sort of space, but rather the feet are level and even.
This one,
Jesus.
oh yeah, that's Sholoka Tingutimba. Or the Carson Dosana. Chinda Nyembe Chida Nese. And the two over she says, Shiva. Koa Chimba, and Nabu. Me Kabuda Kangi, ever seen a condo of what you had in the Shagura. A Koa Chimba. And then Nyembe Chida and Yambarma, Chugitam, Nyambo Koran, Nawadrea, oh, the Mexique at Antidelia, Yahucha, oh, the Abudu Samsate, Tam Chugitam Yambarma, Asita. Panda Ase, and then the Panda Ase, oh, Koran Pendo, to the Yelta. A Tunji Chubata, and a Telanashi, Koti, Churti, Labanashi, Church, Chechuba. Contrichio Amare Chambata, Negre said to the Co, Chechukura, Tunji Chechuba, Chuba. A Tatinashi, Rangi Atinashi Chuba, Chushenge Rangi Atinashi Chuba, Koran Shetelpa, Yamnichi, Nikayo Yopa Chechu, Etapsi Chegara. Two young over she said, Imba. No. Oh, Tenit and Chebal Tene, Joe Mambu, two young over Shilla Labala Tenes, or Tenchi Chuba Yis, Cutilla Tenes, or and the Kari Ungures and Debo, Pandan Chasor Drawaye, Jello Church and the Chursa. Oh. Tachimbata, Yambar Mawata, Pembata, Tenchi Chuba, two young over Shilla Labala Tenes, raw. And the Chada, Sormose. Cha sor ngangbe ke botar dewaye ne chari chandu yo 차다 이제 샵가주네 세모도 바로 동바요라 이 동바 매버시 고 더블을 지치 투데브를 치서라 양데네 지 저도 계절을 따져 로가도 따고네 로통게 배드네 가가 많이 팀버로 델데브 트레세 차다 샵수를 다베 데려왔다서 델데브 거기서라 대한 델데브는 야 가가 지금 매버든데 많이 더블을 시 코티 계절을 때 따위네 따요 어떤데 요새라 어디래도 샤샵 콜로 참바스 고주 등주 등고 데려와 야 그래도 낭배 개보다서 낭바도 된대 요새라 강바도 봐 젤데브를 신고도 와 어디나 시제 이나냐 샤트에 나로 파서도 가가치기만 뭐 이거 잡을 텐데 시비까지 낭배 개보다 샵수 대화찬도 줄 아시고 야 되실라나
So then next in verse 179 or 79 here, then this is referring to the 4 acts of for gathering disciples. So through generosity and gentle speech, by acting beneficently and consistently, you will have hands and feet with digits joined by glorious webs. So here, the kind of 4 means for attracting disciples. First, we gather through generosity, those who might be in need in some way, to bring them in through acts of generosity, and then to speak to them kindly. So here, and gentle speech, referring to speaking to others kindly, and then giving and acting beneficently, as in giving advice that is good, giving them advice that will be of benefit to them. And not only do you tell them, oh, you should do this and you shouldn't do this, but you also yourself act consistent with that. You follow that for yourself. So training for a long time in these 4 means of gathering disciples then leads to, as it describes here, having hands and feet with digits joined by glorious webs. So normally as ordinary sentient beings, we have these kinds of gaps between our fingers, but a Buddha has hands that are sort of hands and feet that have the digits joined by webs. Now we shouldn't think that this would prevent a Buddha from, say, putting on a ring. There's the ability, there is still the sort of space and the flexibility to be able to do that. However, a Buddha's digits are conjoined by that kind of almost like a webbing, like as it describes in the commentary, the king of swans, that have like swans and other types of birds like that will have their hands and feet webbed. And so too, a Buddha has those kinds of webbed hands and feet, not in a sort of obstructive way where they couldn't, say, be adorned, or they can't put on jewelry or something, but these come as a result of practicing through a long time these 4 means of gathering disciples.
Oh yeah, 당간 거 알았어. 교주 한번 들어와. 어야. 이뭐요. 저들가도 사와탄이 또에 쳐서 다 사야다 통해를 써봐. 저 망볼이야 진짜 침바탄이 시거라. rabdo mambo chimba yese sachala soba kala saya misole chimba mambo tawa yese ora rabdo mambo chimba ye chutela tene ne debu kari ngorsena pende chada shabnye shesa ane sajege chada shabde nyembo ra shabnye she kuchi deya tawar jorse 오다 된시대 어디지 연구도 마부시대 있어. 현라 사와다 동안 동안 상부 칼라야보다 동해 마부 럽도 마부 침바에 밴데 차다 셔브년신 잠라세 차다 셔브도 저바 년보다 잠보 어딘데 년신 잠라 션샤셔와 로충중나신기 그뒤나 된데 션샤셔와다 구체신 차셔브 겹시 차다 샵지 겹시다 착바디 뽕버도 가서 가서 내 똥버에도 와대 똥버를 제 겨울로지 찍어요 말아 저저 가가 봐 냠버요 그래서 태공이다 딱배 초 등 좀부터야 양시 시행be 토르기 와서 동범매는 등도 좀 가서 잡로다 들어가가 봉보 잡로도 가가 셰파케니 냠부터 치우셔라 제 인디기셔라 겨주 담바디바 샵다 차라서 원예시 쇼셔셔라 아니 샵지 캡시다 샵지 캡도 쓰여라 차다 샵지 캡시셔라 아니 초 대군이 땅마디 뽕보 그때서 이제 뒤에다 캡 대수 간거 셔야케다 초 뒤에 양바 캥베 다들 어디 질람나 된데서 겨주 담바 그래서
No.
yeah.
So then, beginning with verse 180, through abundantly giving the best food and drink, your glorious hands and feet will be soft, and you will have a large body with 7 broadly curved parts. So here, from giving generously to others, food and drink and so forth, the result of that is to sort of have very kind of like large, soft hands and feet. And then the second part of this, where it says that you will have a large body with 7 broadly curved parts. So here, this is referring to having sort of like a broad, large body. And in the kinds of ways that our ordinary body has, like we have like divots, say, near our shoulders here, where it comes in, and so too on our back and so forth. All of those areas are sort of either convex or sort of even. They don't have that kind of concavity that we have in these particular parts of our body. So rather than that, as it describes it here, you will have this large body with 7 broadly curved parts.
yeah, that church day, that gardo sena. 세면서 차와매버서 샬로 너바매바다 네 셴세에 타치버도 타르버셔바 체다르다 지소라 세메 세바 타르체베 고제 장시 쳐와다 구순 제바다 장보 아니 첨보 어때서 야 장보 고구라 근데 매버셔 장시 쳐와다 아니 세린 소모 제와다 소모 다 차다 저 가가 봐 릭보다 내가 정화다. 그러니까 세반도바 타르체베 어디 데바더라 다들 샬라 차와 매바다 세반도바 타르체베 근데 따나도 뵙고 꾸제시 제바세다 제바다 요아 매바 장보 약화도 구구다 쪼쪼들매 예와 세와다 세레와다 그러니까 소모레와 어디 샵다 소모 또 바릉부 요래 아니 샵지 차치를 파고다 땡바양보다도 샵지 치가 전에 강배 강 접로도 찍버리 줘라 됐어 더버리 줘서라 강대도 수 칠파바시 수 다다 수수 요다베지 근데 뒤에서라 겨시겨지러와 나와래 겨시겨지 너희도 와 샵제시 담바다 소르모도 저래와다 나 땡바 양바다도 주스 땡바 하고 와 샵지 땡 디저데서 디수도 수대바요사라 yeah.
So then moving on to verse 181. So there were 2 that came in the last verse, and there will be 3 that come in this It says, through renouncing violence and freeing those to be killed, your body will be beautiful, straight, and tall. That's one sort of sign. You will have a long life. Your digits will be long. That's the second. And your heels will be broad, being the third. So here, the kind of results, and again, this comes from practicing for a long time, of renouncing violence against others and freeing those to be killed, is having a kind of a large, straight body, a beautiful, straight, and a body that is beautiful, straight, and tall. So here, when one renounces violence and sort of spares the lives of those who might be executed, for example, this leads to having a beautiful kind of a body, and one that is not bent over, but is really like upright and straight. And so too, this results in having long digits, long fingers and toes, as well as having then these kinds of, and your heels will be broad. Again, we have this sort of even foot, and the heel is not sort of narrowed at the end, but has a broad kind of a nature to it.
This one. Oh, that's all the Kabbalah. Just can you do it?
Kechugenyi.
Oh, yeah. Da Yanda Lang Be Chö Nam Ni Pelwe Pande Dose. Da Susugi Chö Kari Keli Che in a Tombora Sawa Payala Soba Kari Kelan Yunasigura. Yanda Lang Be Chö Nam Ni Pelwe Susu Yamli Che Mishandala Pa Pelwatik Sigura. Mishandala Chushe Labja. Susu Yamli Che Tina Shim Mishandala Geshe Yeshe Thabkhe in the Chushe doing and Gatu in a pa Pelko Yara, Mishandal Pengi Yara, teacher. Yanda Lang Be Chö Nam Ni Pelwe Panden Dawson Kusugun daughter to Sambo Ra. And then Shabki Longbu Menguta, Shabji Longbu Menguta, Shabji Longbu should the Kambal Chigrab Toto in the Uda, Tezungi Omar, Marazuneshi. I don't need to sue the doctor of Tende Yongudua, Tende Yoma, Ruben Yoma, Sharpa Kenshi. Shabji Lumbu Mengubada, but we can't do show with somebody you say. Put to the Kanga, yes, we are kitchen, really, can't do choba. Yes, we are choba. Kaya lo the yard get there. Chok with somebody use. Or the Yanda Balang, Drebata, the door. Yanda Balang, Church, children, and Pelue, Shandala, Church de Pelue. But then those songs is those are Shabji, Lumbu Mengudas, Toto, the chick, Toto, with the Tezungi or Mother. Put candle in yes, Kiva. Good push Pabuto, the ye kitchen, ya can do a colony. Yes, Kenny Navy or restaurant, Mandriba Church. Remember somebody, your whole teacher, the door.
So then next in verse 182, through enhancing the practices that you have undertaken. And here, really, it's not just enhancing the practices that you have undertaken, but really spreading those to others. So whatever it is that you yourself practice, using that as a kind of inspiration or enhancement, explaining that practice then to others, leads to, as it says here, you will be glorious, you will have a good complexion, your ankles will not be prominent, and you will be marked with body hairs that curl upward. So here, when it describes the kind of results then that come from enhancing the practices that you have undertaken. So again, this refers to whatever it is that you practice, developing that within yourself, but also using that to benefit others, to give them advice that accords with that, or explaining it to others, leads to yourself having a good kind of radiant complexion, as well having ankles that are not prominent. Now here, when we think about our own ankles, our bones kind of stick out on either side. A Buddha's ankle ankles are not like that. They're sort of even and smooth. They don't have those sorts of bony protrusions. And then the body is of a Buddha is marked by these hairs that sort of curl upward in a pleasing kind of a fashion. And this again being the result of enhancing one's own practices, both for yourself and using those to benefit others.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, that gets you some dimba.
Mm.
Because there's no Rita solar sober nesira. Ribene Karina, and so regular sober Ribene of Totose, Rangishambetuzo. Rita solar sober nes, Ribene ala sober to ne. Kube Lenshin, social love this and Kushab that said it to ne. And then Rangisham, but the Shala for Lavates ora. Kube Lenda, Chimbe Church, Shala Chimba. Shala for Shekora, Lapura, Shal Pato. Oh, teni ti drebu tila kari ungura sene kyuti ina ya chimba da ye no shirab chimba jo juda ina se ya chimba yora chimba tu kanga pe koi nyambu reche pa rem ji pabu reche ya wisara chimba tu te o tina shi yore se koi chimba tu chimba da ye no ane sembu rupa nombu da shirab tar chimba tindra gyurwati Kuteletani yogure suda. Oh, Shene, Ripene, Gala Sobatezo, Soric Bala Soba, Rangi Lebetus, Kubeda Chete, Lavieta, Kushab da Chet. The Rangi Shimba de Shalapa, Shea, Chimbe, and it Chimbati, Rita Inayandana, Shirim, Gia, Papa Shea, Rimjidra, Zeboyora. Shulwe, Rita Inayandata, Temba Sawa. Tembo Chembuta, Shirum Noala Soba, or Tendeli Jurkade Semper. Just Kasum Terda, yeah, this one.
No, jeez. So then coming in 183, by both learning and imparting with respect the sciences, crafts, and other fields of knowledge, you will have the calves of an antelope and have a sharp mind and great wisdom. So here, the sort of physical sign is those calves of an antelope. So by having knowledge of the various kinds of arts, sciences, crafts, and so forth, and developing that such that you're able to teach to others in a respectful kind of a way, this leads to the physical kind of sign of having the calves of an antelope. I guess they're considered to be sort of quite beautiful the way that these their calves are formed. And this again comes by ourselves having knowledge of these various sciences and using that knowledge to impart it to others. And then this in turn leads to our own having a kind of good memory, a sharp wisdom, and developing a great sort of investigative, analytical kind of a wisdom. Although, of course, those are not the physical signs of a Buddha.
Oh, yeah, that you kept it in. Oh, yeah, Cha. This one. Cha got that on Jigdanki. Number all that you thought I ordered it.
Rangi Nordo Lang.
Rangi Nordo. Langjuna, Soso with Chuchala Soba, Shandalia, Pendo, Shetu Shangi Langba ina. Pe Yabushi. Tangadesa, Nurto Tale tissue case. Or Tingal Kugi said, Robert was now Namsan, Joban Namsada, Yongumari Chitime, Namsabatan. Nurto Tale said, Rangin Norio, but the Shell question at the bed. Yopa Kashi Toshit on the Patan at the Mamuchebal Tene, Tuteletene, and its hands some Bukari took it as an Asigora. Rangi Norn doors, Rala Yeben North Esora. Langjurna, Mishanda Langjurna, Nurto Tave Tushuki, Nurto Tave Cholam Kisigora, Cholam Pe Akashi Toshid and Namsatan. Cha, and Cha Teda, Jigdenge, number Banji to Jursa. Oh, Rangin Dope Shalan Yutu Tawal Tam Jevne, Kelly and Namsa Kelly Chevate, Ne Cha Geshe, Cha to Tupa Kebo, Chimbo. Ringwada cha ringbuma, Naranzo le tosi ringa tishira. kuindo dewada, kuindo to sambo. And then Judan, number number, Judan, Judan, you tumble chamber, Jura, Sabra. Oh, the
Hmm.
capture did that, yeah.
Oh.
Mm.
So then in verse 184, through the avowed practice of quickly giving your wealth at the request of others, your arms will be broad and facile, and you will be a leader of the world. So here, when someone is in need, if you have this practice of immediately giving whatever it is that they need without any sort of hesitation, to gladly, joyfully fulfill the needs of others, whatever it is that one might have, if it is necessary for others to quickly give that without any kind of hesitation, leads to then the result of having these sorts of like broad kind of facile arms, sort of able to work, you sort of use them well. And they're also, I should say, in good proportion. So when it comes to the kind of proportion of the body of a Buddha, the arms, the sort of length that they go to and so forth is very pleasing. So this then, the avowed practice of quickly giving your wealth at the request of others, this leads to your arms being broad and facile, and you will be a leader of the world.
Oh, yeah, this one, I thought you can't get back Sholuka. Or Nishi Penzu, Shawata Yandan Dumber Shabayas, Nishi Rangi Yendet in the Gora, Rangi Yendet Pinjata Tender Paso. And it's Timati Yungura, to Sumatin and Hazun Matu Jashashavra, Korakarchan, it's usual Slav Machasura. Metitun Dumbachan, Tinchun, Yagra, Contutuni, Javasavira. Oh, Nishi Penzu. 제와다서 가가서는 미팅을 차서나 양당 돈벌이 제바에서 있는 놈 줘야 돼. 아주 남주 타마빵고래서 타마빵에 들어가서 그래 남주는 돈벌을 가와서 그뒤에 드라마들도 주뒤에 탑시신 것이 고거라. 완전히 개발해서 코콘드 가르치는 시스템 쭉쭉 시스템이라 근데 멤버십. 이제 편주 제와다서 가가서는 미팅을 차나 양당 돈벌이 제바에서 sun dom de tenchu batelasara. Pandan domje bavane, posu nube choto churuse, tambar churuse, ote karsura. Nyeshi penjun chawata yanda bar dumba chawata sere, chawamare yawa, kagashere. Chawata dumbar chabaye langbo sheda, tachang sheda, langjin de da tachang sheda to domge tachi ungora, susu poda mota ungora, ote ba Both no days at a 2 days Samara, Shanalolia to no day at a Tongio. Pandan Domje Pabune, Both Nobe Tambaricurus, oh, teacher Lamna, Kajukanga Derda.
So then verse 185 reads, through seeing to the reconciliation of friends who have had a falling out, you will be a holy person with secret organ retracted into the abdomen. So here, when it comes to like our friends, our family, those who we are familiar with having some kind of disagreement, oftentimes like our response might be to be like, you know what, they disagree, okay, just let it go. And we like try to forget about it, or we just don't pay attention to it. But through seeing to the reconciliation of friends who have had a falling out, if we make an active effort at reconciling people who have had such a falling out, this is the result that comes from that, is having this secret organ that is retracted into the abdomen. So here we talk about needing to give up divisive speech, saying things that create divisions between others, but really we also need to make an effort at reconciliation, at bringing people together when they have some kind of disagreement. And so the result that comes from that is like certain animals, like for example, an elephant and a horse and so forth, their male sign, particularly not the female, this isn't applicable, but the male sign is something that can be retracted into the body. So it's not visible at all times. And so too, for a Buddha, they have that kind of mark or that kind of sign as well.
Oh, dear. 아야 다들이다 강상 당년 영화다 시도 강바상부 대사 강바제야다 는 영화제 지지 내제다 된다 진짜봐 대주제 강가봐 상부 진짜 현달이 진보당화되서라 강상 당년 영화다 세 뒤에 당니에서 다 진짜 된다서라 대신 상황 진바에서 대보다 로 상부 어야보다 진짜 tuklo tebu yoba tinte pa sangbu tinte mangbu kyo mangbu chingba tawa tegi isi ora. Ini karin rukure sina chansang chutele tene sirne tsoma chime ba sir chan tsoma tabu se ora sir tsoma sir dao dosu yakbu ta jambu ta tinte ke chi chi usara. Sirne tsoma chime ma chima me ba kyo me ba tinte se. Shindu jambe dao ndan yo se. Kuyin dao de sir tsoma dao ndan sikdo o tinte gyurwa te.
So then next, in verse 186, it reads, by giving pleasant and excellent dwellings adorned with carpets, your skin will have a gentle hue like unrefined, untarnished gold. So here, by making a kind of a gift of, for example, pleasant and excellent dwellings that are adorned with carpets and so forth, things that are pleasing to others, by giving them such pleasant dwellings, it leads to the result of one's own skin having, and again, this kind of activity through many lifetimes leads to the result of having a very sort of like soft, gentle kind of a hue of the skin, like unrefined, untarnished gold. Yeah.
Oh yeah, talk about this. Okay, step doing ba. Lana maybe Wang Jin Xin say. Rang Gabula so Wang Jia Chimbu Chadu, Rang Wang Jia de Abu Pechuche. And the Wang Jia de Shandal by Chimbatade. Shandal Terre de Tata Chi Chora, Chimbatan Shora. Lana maybe Wang de Sosa Pechuche, Mi Shandal Pa. Gabu Si, the Shandal Ter Soso, Shasha Tindora. Lana maybe Wang de Shanla Chinshin, Rang Chen, Shanla Chinshin. Rigbar Lame Rejupas. Oh, Rigbar Lamala Sobatezu Sumba Nashi, Jubate, Kyoma Jubaltane. Pandan Punya Reda, a Shane Zubi, Gambar Jose. Pandan Sanjay Kitine, Kui Pabu Renes, Kui Pabu Yagas, Pabu Rene, Ta, and then Zubu, Shan the Tibaru, Zubi, Gambata Jubu Resiora. Oh, don't say. Geshe la sopa. Lana maybe one de Shandali Chin Seda. Rigbar Lame Kashindo, or Jason Jube, Pande Pabu Kumbu Redene, Nila sopa Megawara, Pu Nya Redene, Namiji to be Campan Juros, or Terisha, or Tondater. Didos.
Yes.
Ranjibu Hakura, Shani Paru, Pudusia Chichora.
So then coming in verse 187, through giving unexcelled authority and properly following your guru, your resplendent body hairs will grow one by one, or sort of one per pore, I should say, and your face will be adorned with the forehead curl. So here, through giving unexcelled authority, also through using your own authority well, and also giving that authority to others who use it well, this lead as well as properly following one's guru's instructions. These then lead to the results of having again, it says here, your resplendent body hairs will grow one by one. And this really means that in each pore, there's only individually one single hair. So this is a characteristic of the Buddha's body. And so too, your face will be adorned with the forehead curl. Now, this is sometimes difficult to translate into English, but this sort of right curling, sort of miraculous hair that is between the eyes, this this is the result of that, of those causes of giving unexcelled authority and properly following your guru.
Oh yeah, 가솔가 겹치 잡게된 봐. Oh, you better. 년신 가오를 매봐 다세. 현재 나온 종게 년부용게 치료를 서고 납작인데 년부마다 파조대 샘 가부용에 된다. 맥기부용에 기부용 가오를 매봐다. 렉발 매배세 단다 틈바. 유주 매봐 단다 틈바 렉발 매배 파조 펜도용게 렉발 매봐. 다 틈바를 쉐배세. 어때다 파조 간사다 틈부. 틈바 쉐배 조망볼 때 쉐배. 주텔레테네 네 가리온 거르시네 주네 뿡군 dum바다스 뿡벤 고세 디 고테스그라틴 dom부 제부여서라 뿡본딘 거 dum바다 로드 생긴다 로드에서 짜첨보 생기게도 되네시 빠뿡바 짜첨보라 tin데서 생긴다와 유르세 테베 투수 년시 선배 투수 가와다 어디 테베 투수 년부연계 그 암조로 개체 선배도 심라 가와께와 다 현재 레버 매버다 투버체베 현재 레버 매버 렉션도 좀내티 나시소스 라렌 따르베 최네 뽕군 돈바다 로드 게시 페가쇼 바 짜침부르지 그것도 된도 침보다 짜침부르 생기나신세서 저 생기단 drawer 주로다. 야, 되게 되주잖아.
And then in verse 188, it says, by listening properly, speaking in a pleasant manner, and acting in accord with the well-spoken, your shoulders will be well-rounded, and you will have a leonine upper body. So here, when listening to the words of others, we should do so in a sort of pleasant way, or proper kind of a way. So too, when we speak to others, we should speak to them, whether it's giving a dharma advice or otherwise, in a way that is pleasing to them, that isn't sort of aggressive or harsh. And then we should act ourselves in accordance with that advice that is good, or that which is well spoken. So this acting in such ways then results in having these kinds of well-rounded shoulders. Again, these are characteristics that are considered to be beautiful for the body, and having the kind of upper body that's sort of like a lion, a kind of broad, wide upper body.
Oh yeah, 맞죠, 지켜보지 마. 저니까 네번 남라. Rimdu danse, never namlia robacheche. Söbes never searchune, trashune. Teguti, jutelatene, tit mambu sabalatene, tegon gebatans. Bumbag tegon gebata. Tangi nedo, nebadas. Tangi kadina nelma, nebata. Troyene chotuchus, rodesigara. Rosh Mishimbata Tindamavji Kaduna Roshotuchus. You do never namla rimdutan neola sobache de Sebes Naza Searchuna. Pungu Penju, Pumbengo Penju, and a parashak. Oh, the need trade to meba Tembers, Tani. To never la matchbe, a matchbe seto a choto juruatas, or tende deputy Yogudes, Yora. Till it did as you say with Anima. Tell a remission bar, Rochona, Sera, Tavakas, and tell a remission bar. Paruchi Mugid is choice, Sanje some dead to the tall tray chart in the Shiva choice, Sera. Niku go Sambachuna, oh, that Sanjani Kevu Pucha, Tatanda de said the Shigochuna, Pekabusi, Sambachona, Sera. Tene Sanje Shene, Shetebe, Jindruchik for Tete, Chikte, Tisa, so Tisa. But the Roshin Bushi, which is Nimakasha Kala Samu to the Juni, Sako Garazo Pata to the Togu. 디레티어 말 지당 간주 택보 첨부 전은 대하고다 산제 좀 된데도 그 농규모 상계사라 단단 내조 최선시에도 저 농구를 전에 주고를 세요라 농규모 상계사는 잠불리려 주버치 배요라 sampada chidang me rabura cheche pegor ma to tanda ko sanje de tora tayan de tekwa member to sanje tuber sena ene mi mare se jadu re chire something re che de kabuchi mu do the tuber ina mi chogar mi tuber se mi chogora cheza ko mi so su chambara sanje de tambu de sanje sa tayane mi jide tana na shindia ko chidang 나시르치야 칼레 캡틴데 나한테 가라서 텐데 자꾸 왜 다르치래 아마도 상계예버와 다이나 파타드 텐데 지대 감을 전에 심지어 마무실 때 트브랜드네 대소냠도 팬네 파치 쉐데 콜레게 네버리 세드도 콘즈 팬도요라 레 네버리 마세네 페 페네 무슨 통통고 말은 제도요 말아 야 단디셴 어따르 뜻이라나야
Oh.
Yeah,
So then in verse 189, it says, through serving and healing the sick, you will have a broad back. You will be imperturbable, and all tastes will be supreme. So here again, over the course of many lifetimes, through serving the sick, helping them, aiding them, and so forth, this leads then to the result of having a very broad back. Again, these are characteristics of the body that are seen as being particularly beautiful, and so too be imperturbable, like unfazed in the face of whatever might come, and so too all tastes will be supreme. So it's said that whatever a Buddha tastes, indulges in, is actually of a kind of supreme taste. And there is a story about once when there was a famine and they had to eat whatever basically was left, including like the fodder for the animals, and Shariputra was very upset about this, thinking like, I can't believe that the Buddha is having to eat this and so forth. But when the Buddha gave him one of the grains or whatever it was that he was eating, he had the most exquisite kind of flavors fill his mouth. The Buddha's taste is not like our own. It's something that is quite distinct. And so here we should also just be aware, again, according to the Mahayana context, the Buddha attained enlightenment, attained the Sambhogakaya, and later came as a supreme emanation body in order to demonstrate the kind of stages of attaining enlightenment. Now, according to the Hinayana, like saying that the Buddha is just an emanation, isn't an actual human being, has its own problems, and they kind of reject that. They would say otherwise. But for those of the Mahayana, they would say that a Buddha attains a Sambhogakaya, complete with all of these various marks and signs, and comes into the world as sort of appearing as an ordinary being in accordance with the kinds of needs of sentient beings. So when it comes to, like, if we don't have the proper karma, we can't even encounter that emanation body of the Buddha, but we certainly can't see the kind of marks and signs that are on that body due to our own sort of obscuration. However, these are something that if you had the proper kind of karma, or if you had removed certain obscurations, you would be able to encounter these kinds of qualities of a Buddha's body, we could say.
Oh yeah, that's I call it Kuchitambadra. The Chudan Timbe Jawala, Sido, Chudan Timbe Jawala, Torta Chuji, Uchudus. or Chudan Timbe Chavalaya, and if Toma Mebane Mambuji come de Yorda, or Chuji, De Sonda, Teletene, and Ula Sudo than Dembada, Lene Natuta Taburs, Ku, Shin Natuta Taris, Shushin Gabata to choose. Shin Natuta says it what by 아주 남주 충중 시담나 첨부께 벨레자도 나주다 세테레도 야체 롱차스는 야체 되다 파체니 찍어 용도 자갈 만보 용도 하신데 야 가제 거네 도네 티나시 체드니 파라 찹기와라 이 디오를 미테서 듣는데고라 군에 응도 견네 군에 나주다들 출신 값이기도 군에 나주다들 출신 값 돈다 파 산제가 돈파한테서 나야 되다 야마가 체니 찍어요 거라 야마한테다 파한 돈이 체 찍어요 자 출신 값 봐서 되시오라 어디가 최다 팀배 자와라 토다 최지 우측도던 데마다 레네 나주다다부 출신 값이 돈조시 추대신 야마다 파쪽에 구수 차장나 시주 집어쳐가 됐어 팀배 자와라 토다시 소시베 최지 우측도를 내봐라 내봐다 신나주다다 돔다 예멘 도바스도 되시거다 lakpa direction to ba so ha ku ra ye me to nyam ba chushin ka ba ta bo ta wa de de shi la na ku ju ta ba te ba so lo ka
So then 190 reads, by focusing on deeds that accord with Dharma, you will have a crown protuberance and ushnisha on your head, and your body will also have the symmetry of a banyan tree. So here, again, this is by practicing for a long time, by focusing on deeds that accord with Dharma, this leads to then the development of that resulting crown protuberance, the Ushnisha, on the head. And so too, this leads to the body having a certain kind of symmetry here. So when it comes to this Nyagroda tree, or the here translated as banyan tree, this is something where when you you see this more commonly in India, where they will plant these trees and they provide good shade for like houses and such. But generally speaking, the height and the width of those trees are equal. So they have a nice kind of symmetry to them. So too, the body of a Buddha has that same kind of symmetry in terms of the arm span, and the height is similar to the kind of symmetry that one finds in a banyan tree, for example, wherein the growth upward is sort of matched by the growth outward. So it has this nice level of symmetry. Gupchu Kochi. Tigni Denla Jambo da. Lare.
Oh yeah. That is. That's to Joshua, this that just still lost me.
So we have this issue with touching the wrong thing and then losing the spot where we're at, right? But we are going to stop here as we are out of time, but we will pick up with verse 91 or 191, which is then having spoken truthful and gentle words for a long period of time.
Oh yeah, that is, yeah.
So thank you all.
Thank you, Genla, and thank you for these beautiful teachings, and thank you, Katrina, for your translation. We'll finish with some dedications and hope to see everyone again next week, 8 a.m. May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lobsang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering,
May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May the born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
맞아.
진짜